Hey, Brian. I know we asked Aaron about this a couple of times down the stretch. With the way the roster is coming together for the playoffs, and you look at Dominguez and the issues he had in left field, do you look back on anything that you guys did with him in the minors this year that you could have done differently in terms of getting him accustomed to playing a new position?
No, I mean we actually mixed in the new position. So no, just a small window for him because of the injury and coming back from the injury and managing that. So no,
What do you think of his play out there so far?
uh, obviously there's a few plays clearly that have gotten a lot of attention and understandably so. He's this is a very young, high end prospect that's dropped in the middle of a pennant race and playing a position that he's still developing in. So it's a tough spot to be in. But the compete factors there. And again, the whole purpose of getting him up when we did after the injury to DJ was to learn as much as we could. So hopefully we'd be in a position to factor all information in when we're trying to put together a postseason roster. So that trial was definitely beneficial, and everything we saw will certainly be discussed here as we finalize what we hope to be is the winning roster here in the next round.
Thank you.
Phillips.
Hey, Brian, thanks for taking the time today. Just curious if you guys have made any progress on a decision regarding Anthony Rizzo.
No, he's full board treatment mode right now, and to try to allow a very tight window of healing to take place. So I know that he presents under those circumstances, obviously better than you would expect, in terms of a lot less pain than you would expect and more strength, to the squeeze than you would expect given what he's going through. But he has not been doing baseball activity as of yet because we want to try to take advantage of such a tiny, tight window. But we'll have to do some things to learn as much as we can before we make a final decision whether he's really a roster choice for us or not in this round.
With all that in mind, is it safe to assume that he's still a long shot, like Aaron said the other day? And if so, how comfortable are you with your options over there?
Yeah, I mean, it puts us in a difficult position. We're trying to give it the runway it deserves because of the magnitude of the player. So we're going to make sure that give it a little time before we make a final official. But clearly that the timing of that injury was not great, and the turnaround time. He's going to be trying to beat the turnaround time typically for that. But as I said, you treat the patient, not necessarily the MRI or the X-ray, and he is presenting well without doing any activity thus far. So it's give us maybe a glimmer of I wouldn't say hope, a glimmer of we'll see. Let's talk further about this down the line as we get closer to having to make a final official decision. In terms of the alternatives, we have alternatives clearly with the primaries right now would be between a Ben Rice and a Cabrera, and LeMahieu's working his way through, as well, and so we'll see how it all shakes out.
Just to follow up, has DJ begun baseball activities?
He's started to do some things, yes. And again, the time frame for him a little bit difficult, but ultimately, he's doing everything he can to check all the rehab boxes along the way. It probably is speeding it up a little bit if he becomes a legitimate consideration. But I think the primary names that you're talking about obviously are the Rices and the Cabreras.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Hope, go ahead.
Hey, Brian, you got a full season to watch Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, the tandem of them. How do you evaluate what you were able to do with bringing him in and what he meant to this team? Seeing those two guys together, I mean.
Yeah, it was a pretty incredible dynamic duo, those two. And, something a rarity to see something like that matched up, in a lineup. And so he came as advertised. We needed to improve the offense. He significantly provided that, partnering with obviously the players that we already had here, most importantly Aaron Judge, and so certainly, hopefully that they can wreak havoc here in the postseason. But yeah, it was certainly, I think, fun for our fans to watch, and I think beneficial for our organization as we tried to significantly improve the offensive output based on last year.
Can that move be a success if they don't bring home a championship?
I mean, bringing home a championship is a lot more difficult and a lot more complicated. I do honestly believe anybody that's currently in the tournament has a legitimate chance to raise that trophy on both American League and National League sides. And so it's a lot more complicated than just one move. But certainly he was brought in to improve our chances. And I think that he has certainly improved our chances without a doubt, and made us partnering with the cast of characters that we either already had or we brought in with him, allowed us to put ourselves in a position to be the best record in the American League, winning the American League East, and having home field advantage. So it's carried us this far, but we have higher goals than that. We're certainly hopeful that all of these players combined can obviously navigate October and be that last team standing.
Peter Squandorio, go ahead.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for taking the time. What do you believe has allowed Gleyber Torres to turn his season around offensively, and how much will playoff performance maybe play a role in your evaluation of him as he goes into free agency?
It's an interesting question. I'd flip the question more of a why didn't he hit before, then rather than now. But hopefully he saved the best for last. He's always been a professional, tremendously talented hitter. And I've pondered, was it the trade deadline and he got through that, and then all of a sudden decided, and then it was just settle in and relax. I really don't have an answer to it. But the real question for me is what happened in the first 4 months rather than what was he doing the last 2 months, because we're used to seeing what he's doing now, and certainly wasn't expecting, the slumps that he was occurring in the first half to have occurred, because he's so much better than that. But again, it's just, reminds us all how difficult this game is to play, even if you're one of the greatest at playing it. And he's certainly one of the more exceptional offensive second basemen in this game. But thankfully, he's gotten it going at the most important time, which helped us, through the final stretch and get us into that American League East title and home field advantage. So he had a big reason for that as well.
Thank you.
Kirshner, go ahead.
Hey, Brian. How do you evaluate what Anthony Volpe did offensively this year?
Again, I think he's got a lot more upside than what he showed. I mean, it depends when you ask. There's times where he was flying high, and then there's times when he was flying low, and so it was a bit of a roller coaster on the offensive side. But the combination of it's that profile, that position's defensive first. So I think still the combination of his defense with his offense, with his offensive capabilities being that much more, I still think we have a winning player at that position, and so we are excited that he's in our fold and part of the solution, and one of the reasons why obviously we're sitting in the position we're sitting.
Brendan Cuddy, go ahead.
Cash, thanks for taking the time. Just what do you think of your team's chances to win it all this year? And also, what do you think of fans who see a 5 seed ahead against you guys this round and say, this is the best shot you guys have had in a long time at reaching a World Series?
First question. I'm sorry. The first question was,
what do you think of your chances?
I think we got a shot. Without a doubt. But I know this too, that I think that, the Royals are a tough opponent. We just recently saw them at Yankee Stadium and saw their capabilities. Obviously their front two starters with Lugo and Reagans are, tremendous. They made a great trade deadline acquisition with Ursig, especially, and the one thing that JJ's done, from the winter all the way through the deadline is just continue to find ways to improve that roster, small and large, and obviously he's being rewarded for those efforts with a team that's obviously in the division series now facing us, and so I think we have a great shot, but we only have a great shot if we play our best baseball. I know that we have the capabilities, but at the same time, I caution that we've had capabilities on many times before, and you have to match those capabilities with obviously great defense, great base running, tremendous offensive at bats against extremely tough pitching, and obviously the most important aspect is pitching to the best of your abilities. And I think we have the pieces, that are here, and we have the will to make it happen. And now we just got to, go up against an opponent that's, very worthy. They earn their right to be here, and they're a dangerous team, as we just recently saw as we faced them, not too long ago. So we know what they're capable of, and saw what they obviously did to a great opponent, and now they're here. So they're going to be somebody that we'll have to find a way to navigate. But I certainly proud of where our guys are sitting, and we need to take advantage of it by playing great baseball so we can move forward. We'll see.
Ron Blum, go ahead.
Hi, Brian. What aspects of the group are you most confident in producing during the postseason, and what are your worries of what can go wrong?
I have confidence in everybody, all aspects, whether it's our starting pitching, our bullpen, or our offense, and my biggest worry though is obviously, it's a sport that, you have your highs, you have your lows, you have your great games, you have your tough games or bad games. This is, a game, in October, you have to make sure you eliminate your mistakes or limit them to the best of your abilities. And those who obviously, play close to their capability while at the same time limiting their, limiting mistakes in series have a chance to move forward. And the ones that obviously make too many, they get sent home typically. So my worry is always, not playing to the best of our abilities and recognizing that this is a very difficult sport to play, and you're going up against, legitimate opponents every step of the way.
What have you learned over the 25, 30 years of how to navigate these 4 or 5 day postseason layoffs?
I don't think there's any secret sauce. Obviously, we're doing sim games. We flew up a number of different players to keep them. Our Stay Hot camp is clearly here in New York, and we're doing sim games to try to keep these guys active. It still doesn't replace being, in real competition with fans in the stands and stuff like that. But we brought umpires in. We tried to simulate it as close as we could to real in-game competition to keep the guys sharp and fresh. That's about as all we can do. Certainly we have a lot of different practice routines that I think try to simulate, the speed of the game, whether it's on offense facing the trajectory pitching machine or on defense, in live scenarios to try to, again, keep our guys active in real form with as close to game simulations as you can. But it's still not a real game. So I think Aaron Boone and his staff are doing as good a job as they possibly can. And our players are certainly committed. They know what's at stake here. And they've worked extremely hard well before spring training started. Obviously, once the season ended last year, as bad as it did, the players that are here from last year that carried into this year carried a torch of hunger, a torch of obviously a need to obviously make up for last year and put ourselves in a position to stay strong and fly high as possible come October. And they put themselves in a great position thus far. That desire obviously remains to finish the job. But now you just have to navigate some real difficult opponents along the way, and we're going to have to wait and see how it plays out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Boland, go ahead.
Brian, given the recent history, the last 9 years, was there at least a small part of you glad to see the Astros get knocked out?
No, I mean, it's a different crew. I like Dana Brown, the general manager. I certainly, Joe Espada was one of our own. A really tremendous coach that worked here for us. And so I've got great relationships with in big positions over there. What happened in the past happened under a different regime and different people. And you come to learn you don't have any rooting interest in October. Either way, it's just focus on what you can control and who you got with yourself. And right now we're just obviously preparing ourselves. And now we know who our opponent is. It's Kansas City. But I thought Joe Espada did an amazing job. They got out of the gate with a ton of injuries. I don't know how they survived it, but not only did they survive it, they thrived and found a way to win that division. And I knew he would be a good manager, and I was not surprised by the success that he had right out of the gate.
And then completely unrelated, you've been a part of this organization since 1986, so you've seen a lot of great individual seasons. How do you contextualize Judge's 2024 season, particularly coming, just 2 years after his MVP season, when people were saying you'd never see something like that again?
I feel like you're seeing that. I feel like we've been denied similar type seasons potentially from him because some of those seasons got cut short with injury, and it just seems like whenever he's playing, he's operating at such a superhuman level, stuff that we have not seen before. And so it's a pleasure to call him ours, call him captain, and having him lead us. But wow, it's a great gift to our fans to watch what's currently a living legend, on the field, play out. And so let's hope that obviously he and his crew, all of us are going to be in a position to finally add another positive to his resume, which is ultimately a world championship. That's something that he and we have not accomplished together yet. And so, certainly in 2024, we hope to finally get back up on top of that, and we'll see.
Last one from Jack Curry. Go ahead.
Hey, Cash, with the way that this schedule breaks out with off days, how likely are you to go with 12 pitchers instead of 13?
It's a good question, Jack. We had an appetizer of a meeting, I would describe it, yesterday, post workout, post sim game. And obviously the main course is coming, here in the next 48 hours. But we had a lot of dialogue between 11 pitchers, 12 pitchers. Ultimately the decisions will come down to our manager and what he's the one pulling the levers. He's the one that, as we play these what if games, as we simulate, verbally, now we finally know our opponent. Yesterday when we were doing the meetings, we didn't know yet who we were playing, but now that we do, obviously we have a little bit more specifics we can go to, but we're having a lot of conversations about, what about this, what about that, and you're covered here, you're covered there, but ultimately he's the one moving the chess pieces. So that's the most important thing, that we, can do, is cover all those discussion bases, and then he's got to make the final call about how he wants to be covered, because he knows the type of game he's going to strategically play and how he's going to push an envelope, whether it's deploying a base runner or whether it's defensive replacing somebody, whether it's pinch hitting somebody, whether it's covering us for the extra innings if you go extra innings, because postseason you don't have the designated runner in the 10th inning on. So ultimately, we're trying to cover all those conversation topics, and we will respond without a doubt to his need and his feelings and what he wants, and that's what we'll do. But we haven't finalized it yet. But we did have more in person conversations yesterday for the first time post workout.
Thank you.
Yeah, everybody. Cash, appreciate you jumping on. Thanks again. Everybody hang tight. We're going to have James Rouse in here momentarily.
Okay, thanks.
James, thank you for waiting through Cash and that brief moment. Michael Wacha is going against you guys game one. How do you attack Michael Wacha?
I think, well, first of all, Michael's got some experience in these postseason games. Obviously, you don't take anybody lightly. I mean, if we attack her like we've done the rest of the previous part of the season, we're going to prepare for him the same way. Our guys have been pretty good at it so far this season with attacking starting pitching in terms of like our plan. We're going to have a plan. We're going to have a game plan. We're going to try to go out there and execute that plan. His job is obviously to not allow us to execute that plan, but the goal is going to be to be ready on time and control the hitting zone. I mean, it doesn't change very much depending on who you're facing. For the most part, you got to be able to get the pitch you're looking for, and you got to be able to execute on those pitches and hammer the mistakes. I mean, these guys at the major league level, you got to be able to hammer the mistakes when they throw.
Thank you.
Eric Boland, go ahead.
James, what do you know about Juan Soto that you didn't know about him when you first started working with him in spring training?
Just the level of the way he works. I've seen the player across the field, obviously, before working with him, and you know how good he is. But what he puts in every day, his consistency, the teammate that he is amazing. Like, these are the things that are behind the scenes that, to me, have helped our team as a group come together. Juan's been a big part of that. The way he cares about the guy next to him. You can only see what he does, but you don't see what he does for the guys around him. I think he's been a great influence on some of our players at our clubhouse. I mean, I think a cabbie, just to start, is one, and there are so many other guys. But his influence in the clubhouse, the way he goes about his business, you can watch him and you learn. So this is a guy, and he's open. He's open to help his teammates. He answers questions. He works with guys. He's way better than I expected. And I mean, looking at his track record and looking how good a player he was, it's hard to be better than that. But once you get to meet him, he's better than what you thought.
Ron Blum, you have the next question. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for doing this. When players come in like Soto and Jazz, how do you get them to both be aware of the short porch and right and not get too enamored with trying to poke it over?
It's a great question. I think we're all human, right? So part of it is they see it, they know. But what you try to talk about is there's a reason they're here. And you try to get them to remember to do the things that they did that made them successful to get here. So when they were in other places and they didn't have that short porch per se, they were still really successful hitters. That's why they are where they are. So you just got to remind guys, do the things that you've done well always. I mean, the short porch is, it's an added plus, but it can be trouble if you get away from your strengths and get away from the things that you have been doing prior to that. So really the conversation is about remember what you do well, remember who you are. And, when guys do make mistakes to those guys on the inner part of the plate, obviously it's a little bit more forgiving to that side of the field. But you don't want to get too enamored with it to where you get away from your strengths and now all you're trying to do is hit the ball over the right field wall because your swing can break apart and fall apart that way.
Are there times you've had to warn players about that?
Oh, no doubt. Like I said, we're human, so we talk about it. At times you'll talk about it if you see a left-handed hitter getting a little bit too pull happy at times, and you start to see maybe that roll over to second base or that ball is being hit to the right side of the field, and you see their swing start to change. You remind guys. We haven't had a whole lot of it. I think our guys are so good and they're so disciplined, they don't realize it. But then, if you bring it to their attention and they see it, then they're able to get back to doing what they do well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Brian Hope, go ahead.
Hey, James, we saw Judge homer in 5 straight games, and he got the day off and struck out 5 times. Where do you see his swing going into the postseason here?
I see him in a great spot. I mean, obviously, anybody has tough days in this game, but I mean, I think his season speaks for itself. I think what he's able to do this year is something that, we haven't seen from a right-handed hitter maybe in the history of the game in terms of what he's been able to do. So I love where he's at. He's been motivated from day one. I think he's looking forward to obviously the postseason, and anyone who knows Judgy, he stays focused on the day, but he does have a goal in mind, and we all do. The goal is to win a World Series, and it starts one game at a time. So I love where he's at. I think his focus is going to be strictly on this first game, and we're going to take it from there. But he's the leader in the clubhouse. He's the guy that people lean on. He's the guy that shows up every day and keeps everything together. So I'm super happy for him, knowing his history and knowing him so far. And I think this is going to be a solid postseason for him. I'm really looking forward to see what he can do.
And Martin, go ahead.
All right, James. James, before you got here, I know you've been with the organization earlier, but the past few times the Yankees haven't advanced as far as they would have liked it. A lot of it was on the offense. Is that something that you can look back and address? Is there anything that you can go back to and see what went wrong, even in years when the offense was good? It kind of went south during October. Are there any trends that you could point to with that moving forward?
Good question. You know what, Dan? I think a lot of times for me, it's more about being able to take that deep breath as a group. You get to these games and everybody wants to win. And again, like I said, we're all human. So I think there's an element of pressure that you can put on yourself, or, the moments can change, and you got to be able to kind of relax and trust everything you've done to this point. Trust the work that you put in, trust your teammates, trust the guys behind you. These are the things that we preach all year. It's not about, I say the title's a hitting coach, right? But at the end of the day, you're trying to produce offense, you're trying to score runs, and you want the guys to understand, you do that together. You do that as a group. So I think just reminding the group, and they've been great at that this year. They've been awesome as a group. They really have gotten together. This is a really tight-knit group. And I feel like that's the reminder. It's just the deep breaths, continuing to trust the process. There's obviously opportunities where you may get up there and there could be men on base, you don't get them in. Well, the key is keep putting those guys out there and we'll get them in. Keep trusting in what you do. So that's my message to our group. Is going to be trust themselves. They've been great at it all year long, and we plan on doing that in this series, and hopefully write it out for the entire postseason.
Go to Chris Kirschner.
Hey, James. Waka has dominated the matchup between Judge. She's 1 for 18 against him. It's the lowest amount of success Judge has had against any pitcher. What is it about him that you think makes him a challenge for someone like Judge?
Again, I think he's a good pitcher, right? He can mix it up. He's got experience. He knows, how to command the ball at different parts of the zone. But at the same time, I look at this matchup coming up like it's a different game, and now it's just one game at a time, right? So there's something of having a track record, and then there's staying in the present and staying in the moment that's coming to us. And I know, Judge is going to be in the moment, and I think that's where we all are. We're in the moment right now. The key is we're going to see him here on Saturday, and the key is prepare the best we can as a group for him on that day. Not sure what he's going to have that day, not sure what that day is going to bring, so we'll take it. But you do tip your hat to guys that have pitched well in this league and have done some things in this league. Michael Walker is one of those guys. He's got a track record. He's pitching the postseason, so there's nobody taking him lightly. But we're also going to be prepared to go out there and put together a good game plan to have success, and Judgy will be right along the group looking to go out there and get a good pitch and put a good swing on it.
Gary Phillips, we'll take last question, then we'll have Aaron Boone.
Hey, James, I've actually got two for you. Just to start, what do you make of Oswaldo Cabrera's offensive performance over the last 40 games or so? And just how hard is it being a guy that doesn't get necessarily regular playing time?
Yeah, I think O's done a great job. Again, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it's not easy to kind of just play, not know when you're playing, and be ready all the time to show up and play and give to the team. I think number one, you've got to be a guy that's committed to the team and the success of the team, and that's who he is. I think you guys talk to him enough, and his attitude, his energy, the things that he brings in that spot are really important. So he's been great for me in that role. He's also a guy who does what it takes for whatever the team needs. He's not necessarily into the at-bats for himself. He's into the at-bats. So what can I do? Is it to move a runner? Is it to go up there and have a really good at bat in a maybe a pinch hit situation? Am I starting here at this position today and then going to be somewhere tomorrow? So he's always prepared. I think he's done a really good job for the role that he's been in for us this year.
Gotcha. And then second question, we've heard Jazz yesterday talk about how, he dreamed of playing in the playoffs with the Yankees. We've heard Anthony Volpe talk about that being a local guy. You're also a local guy. Just how excited are you for this first postseason as the team's lead major league hitting coach and coming from around the corner?
Absolutely. From it's a dream. I can tell you that. I mean, honestly, it's a dream. I grew up in this city. I was a kid in this city. I watched games in this city, Yankee games as a kid coming up. So to have an opportunity now to be on this club and have a chance to, win a world championship. That's what you think about in this city. I mean, that's part of it. Part of the lure is to win a World Series with the New York Yankees. And, we have an opportunity in front of us. It starts one day at a time, but I'm super excited about it and looking forward to it and feel really good about our chances to do well in this postseason.
Thanks for taking the time today.
Aaron, we talked to Matt Blake. Sorry about that. It was good timing. We talked to Matt Blake yesterday, and he mentioned Stroman and working through what his role might be going forward. Do you have anything on that and what you might expect from him in the playoffs if he's going to be on the roster, and if so, what role he might have?
Yeah, we still haven't made that call. We kind of had a kind of our first big, get the coaches, front office in a room yesterday, actually before the Orioles and Royals game had played, to kind of just get everyone's thoughts on or strong opinions on certain things. So kind of just now figuring out like how many pitchers we're going to go with, how many position players. We'll start to finalize that over the next probably 24 hours. But we haven't made that final call yet. Marcus threw in the sim game yesterday. He threw 2 innings. So trying to keep him, with some volume and stretched out. I don't expect him to be a starter in this series. As for what role, we haven't made that call yet.
Thanks.
Brendan Cuddy, go ahead.
Hey, Aaron, in talking to Cash just now, he mentioned how a lot of the number of pitchers you guys take may involve, how many you want, right? Because you're the one who's pulling the levers. Just what goes into it for you, and which way are you leaning? Are you thinking 12 guys, even 11 guys?
Yeah, kind of torn a little bit still between 11 and 12. Obviously having, the off days in a 5-game series and not needing the 4th starter necessarily. So, that puts Clark and Luis in play on some level in the first couple of games in a different kind of role. So that's what I'm kind of deciding over, frankly, but have not made that call yet. We'll continue to kind of work through that today and talking to different guys. Cousins is throwing his live today, so I want to see that. But yeah, kind of right now deciding more between 11 and 12.
And just what are you guys doing today?
We'll have another sim game today, shorter today. We're doing some early bunting stuff on the field. And then probably a 4 or 5 inning sim game today where we have to get some pitchers work, and then we're having a little team dinner here after it.
Go ahead.
Hi, Aaron. What has allowed Gleyber Torres to turn around offensively, and I guess what has he brought to the leadoff spot? Has he settled into there the last month?
You broke up. Start over.
Oh, sorry. Just what has allowed Gleyber Torres to turn his season around offensively, and what has he brought to the leadoff spot?
I think it's just you're seeing a guy in the prime of his career that's a really good hitter coming back to who he is. It was a tough first few months for him, just kind of getting it rolling, never got hot. I felt like was doing some okay things. Really, it was interesting because he had a great spring, like really beginning to end. It was like, let's just bubble wrap this and get him to New York. Like he was having good at bats every day, squaring balls up left and right. He'd have a day off or two and come right back out. It was just real consistent. And then obviously it was a struggle the first couple months, just kind of gaining traction, getting in a really good groove, never got hot. But the one thing he was doing really well was, and we've talked about this a lot, is his swing decisions have been excellent all year. And even in that, while he was struggling a little bit in the first couple months, he wasn't chasing a lot. He was swinging at the right pitches in zone. He just wasn't impacting the ball a lot. And I think really we've just seen in the second half a guy that's whatever, 27, 20, whatever he is, a guy in the prime of his career that's always been a really good hitter, coming off a really good offensive season last year, kind of coming back to that. And he's just, I think, just really focused right now. I think his last 2 months has just been focusing on knowing who I got hitting behind me. And the focus has been as simple as, let me go up there and have a really tough at bat. Let me take a tough at bat. And that's something we've talked about with the whole group. These guys talk to each other about it all the time, going back to spring training. Like, let me have a good at bat. Let me take a tough at bat, make it difficult on the pitcher, whatever results may be. And Glaber's embodied that here the last couple of months. He's been outstanding.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ray Phillips, go ahead.
Hey, Aaron. Going back to the pitching staff for a second, Matt Blake said that he felt it was kind of important to have two lefties in the bullpen. Obviously, Tim Hill's been outstanding for you guys. Just curious if you feel the same way in that regard and what that might mean for Tim Mesa.
We'll see. Tim's certainly in the running to be on this. Again, it a little bit maybe depends on how many we go with. Ideally you have all the box checks, right? Where you got a couple lefties, you got a couple. Now I do feel like we have righties that are, pretty good at getting lefties out, so that factors in a little bit. But Tim's certainly in the running for one of those final bullpen spots. Obviously depends on making sure Cousins gets through today. And then again, deciding on ultimately how many we settle on for our pitching staff.
Gotcha. Thanks.
But I feel like he's done a really nice job for us. Obviously he's been a really good pitcher with Toronto over the last several years. It was a struggle for him in the first half before they ultimately DFA'd him. And I feel like he's kind of found himself a little bit here over the last month. And I think he's done a good job and can definitely be an asset for us, in some certain situations.
Just to follow up on that, what have you seen change from him compared to where he was early in the season with Toronto?
I think he's got his velo back a little bit. That his velo was a tick down. And that, I think he went down to Tampa and did some work, and, that velo that has been more in line with who he's been throughout his career has returned, and that's allowed him to have some success.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Hoke.
Aaron, you've been saying be careful what you wish for, but now that you know it's Kansas City, how do you think you guys match up against them?
Look, I think we match up well against anyone, but I also know every team scares me and is dangerous. And what we've seen from this Royals team all year is that they're very well-rounded, excellent starting pitching. They got Vinny Pasquantino back, who, when he went down, their offense really suffered there. Having him back in the middle is big. I think their bullpen, which probably on balance over the years been kind of middle of the pack, down the stretch was really good. And obviously getting Urseg to anchor things at the back. Their bullpen, I feel like, has really ticked up here over the last month. So I think they're a formidable team. They're a scary team. They're coming off a big road series victory against a good opponent, and we'll probably walk into here with a lot of confidence. And that said, though, we're excited for the challenge of it and can't wait to get going Saturday night.
Thank you.
Curry, go ahead.
Aaron, if I were to say the Yankees can win the World Series if A, B, and C happen, I know it's probably more like A to Z, but what are some of the specifics that have to happen for you guys in the postseason to get to that ultimate goal?
Pitch, hit, and catch the baseball. We do those three things, I'll take our chances.
Within those sets that you just mentioned, what are the subsets that have to exist? Is it great starting pitching? Is it your bullpen locking down games you're supposed to win? Is it hitting with runners in scoring position?
Yeah, I think you got to be able to have, and I feel good about where our bullpen is as far as what we've seen kind of start to take shape over the last couple of months and some roles being identified and solidified. Those guys going out and doing their job is critical. I feel just as good about our starting pitching. I feel like Garrett's in a really good place to be that ace that you hand the ball to in any situation that you can. And then behind that, between Carlos and Clark and Luis, I feel like we have three guys that can go up against anyone and hold their own and then some. And then offensively, I think we led the league in runs. We obviously have two guys that are in the middle of historic seasons or towards the end of historic seasons. But I also feel like our supporting cast is really good too. And will obviously play an important role, as I'm sure in certain games, teams are going to try to avoid having Juan and Aaron beat them. So that falls on the entire group to make sure, they're doing their jobs. And it's got to be a big hit or a big at bat in a certain game from different people. I feel like we have the people that are capable of that. And then, and then how you mix and match and kind of on the outskirts, as far as different guys getting different opportunities and different roles. Hopefully somebody stepping up and doing something impactful to help us win a ball game. But we're excited to take our shot. I think the boys are ready. I think they're really focused. I think they're really hungry, and we're excited to take our shot.
Thank you.
I think there's three left in queue. Ron Blum, go ahead.
Hi, Aaron. What is your view of the particular challenges of facing the Royals, and how did they change as a team between when you faced them in June and you saw them again a few weeks ago?
Well, I think from early in the season to now, their bullpen has improved. They've had a couple of guys emerge down there, and then obviously bringing in Urseg to anchor them, has taken their bullpen to another level. I think it's a team that's really, I think, built the strength of their season around their starting pitching and a superstar young player in the middle of the diamond and Bobby Witt Jr. But their starting pitching has kind of been their calling card all year. Reagans, Lugo will both be in that kind of Cy Young conversation or, votes or however you want to call it. Waka's been a guy we faced over the years quite a bit and has put out another really solid Michael Waka type season. They got Singer who can pitch, but I think their bullpen has improved, and then getting Pasquantino back here probably earlier than they expected, gives them another dynamic in their lineup.
Thank you.
Randy Miller, go ahead. You just got to unmute it, big dog.
I'm just excited to see you sitting at a desk this year.
There's always a lot of talk on what teams are going to do with Judge. Are they going to walk him? Are they going to pitch to him? And you could make the same call with Witt. He's had good success against you. I know small sample size, but he has great success against everyone. When you look at that lineup, Salvador Perez is a very good player and Witt's a superstar. Do you say that I can't let Witt beat me and take my chances with other guys? I know they have some other decent hitters, but nothing like those two.
Yeah. I mean, Pasquantino complicates things. Obviously, him coming back, he's kind of been Witt's protector all year. And I think when he was out, I think Witt's production went down a little bit. The thing that complicates it a little bit with Witt is his speed, so he gets on. He's such a threat to turn that into a double, triple, whatever it may be. But there's going to be moments where, you got to make a choice. And I think for some people that's everyone's a little bit different. We see that throughout the regular season and with how teams treat Judge, with what he's going through. Some teams go right after him, are super aggressive. Some teams are completely take the bat out of his hand, and So that's kind of how I look at it. For me, there's moments where it kind of declares itself like I got to go one way or the other. But, we also don't want to be intentionally putting him on base, especially with his impact on the bases, too much either.
And one more, do you know what you're going to do with left field yet? What do you think you're going to do there?
I mean, I have in my mind where I'm going right now, but I'm still going to let it marinate for 24 hours and make sure, I'm talking to the right people and before I ultimately make that decision, at least for game one, and then it could be fluid from there.
When you're in your head saying it's this guy or this guy, what are you saying to yourself? Do I want Dominguez's potential power? Do I want Verdugo's defense, the experience? What's going through your head?
All that and more.
All right, we'll take one more with Brendan Cuddy.
Creative there, Randy. Very good.
Aaron, Judge is 1 for 18.
You're muted.
You muted yourself. You're
muted. There you go.
Oh, for 2 days in a row.
We're back.
Listen, Judge is 1 for 18 career against Waka. You don't see a lot of guys have that much success against the best hitter, one of the best hitters in baseball. What makes him such a difficult matchup for Aaron and in general?
Well, just my recall of over the last few years where we've seen Michael, whether it's in Tampa, whether it's in Boston. I remember an outing he had against us at Fenway Park a few years ago, and it sticks in my head as one of the best outings pitched against us that year. I think it was 21, might have been 22. I don't know what year he was in Boston, but it was one of those really good outings against us where he was really on top of his game, had his changeup going, the cutter, location, all that. So sometimes it's place and time. I'll still take my chances. I think last time I got asked about somebody, this might have been during a regular season, about Aaron and a matchup against a certain player, and did I consider sitting him because picking a day off or something? I said, no, not really. And I think he went out and homered or hit a couple homers or did something. So I'll chalk this up to small sample, and I'll take Aaron Judge against just about anyone on any day. But we know Waka's a tough customer. He's always pitched us tough, and we know we got our work cut out for us. But again, we look forward to it.